Roger. Nice to be in orbit.
We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
Good afternoon and welcome to America's Spaceport here in Florida. This is a live look at Launch Pad 39A at the Kennedy Space Center, where Crew-10 is in the process of suiting up for their mission. The second attempt, today's T0, is 7:03 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. That's when a Dragon spacecraft sitting on top of a SpaceX Falcon rocket will launch them to the International Space Station. But as you can see now live on your screen, Crew-10 is getting suited up, ready to go, to continue their regular crewed flights from U.S. soil to station as part of NASA's Commercial Crew program. Hello and good afternoon. I'm NASA's Daryl Nail, and this is the official launch broadcast of Crew-10. And with me again on this second launch attempt to help commentate to what's happening this morning is NASA astronaut Jessica Meir. It is so good to have you back.
Thank you, Daryl. It's a lot of fun. This is a nice second go after our dry run dress rehearsal the other day. So we're all excited to get this rocket off the ground today.
Crew-10 got practice. We got practice.
Okay, everybody. This is a replay. I'm going to play it, but at the time being, this is the full video, actually. So they're not covering the whole video in other broadcasts. We're going to cover the whole, at least bits and pieces of the entire video here, and go over some of the comments that were made earlier on the Scrub mission. But the mission was successful. We're going to go over everything here, and let's play it.
The production team got practice, and we're going to be even better than we were before, right?
Absolutely.
Well, the mission today, we are flying NASA astronaut commander Ann McClain, NASA astronaut pilot Nicole Ayers, JAXA astronaut mission specialist Takuya Onishi, and Roscosmos cosmonaut mission specialist Kirill Peskov. Today, the crew's ride to space is the Dragon Endurance spacecraft, its fourth flight to space, and all four previous, well, including this one, will have carried crews for NASA and one of your favorite spacecrafts, right?
Yes, Endurance is one of my favorite Dragon names, and this is because of the affiliation with Shackleton's Imperial Trans-Antarctic Expedition. So Endurance was the ship that Ernst Shackleton used in that spectacular voyage. I love reliving these accounts of these early Antarctic explorers. Talk about some brave individuals. Endurance actually was trapped in the pack ice in the Weddell Sea, somewhere where I've actually done research. And that was in 1915. So a nice nod to those incredible explorers.
Indeed, Endurance is a very fitting name for that ship and for the one that is flying today. As I mentioned, today is the second launch attempt for Crew-10. On Wednesday, a little background, NASA and SpaceX stood down from the first attempt after teams discovered a suspected pocket of air trapped inside the ground support hydraulic system used for the clamp arm that you can see there on your screen. It's at the very top of the rocket, holds it to the transporter erector. Yesterday, ground support teams successfully flushed that hydraulic system, and now it's ready to go for today's launch. And so astronauts took a little bit of a break while they did that procedure.
Yeah, we were talking on the broadcast the other day, kind of wondering what they would do with this extra day off, and I was hoping they would have some good time for some R&R. You know, they were supposed to be in space, so essentially they'd done everything they needed to do. So they took a nice, I think they had a nice day relaxing and really accomplishing just that, without that task list over their heads of all those last-minute things you're trying to do before you go to space, hand over your phone, your email, and all of that. I remember that feeling well. So I think they had a good chance to relax yesterday.
We hope so indeed, because it's needed. It's a long day getting to space, and they have a very long day ahead of them and a long trip to the ISS. So over the next 4.5 hours, we will walk you through this detailed pre-launch operation and show you all the action live as it's happening from the suit-up room through liftoff. But first, let's get some quick background on our wonderful co-host, Jessica Meir. In 2019, if you didn't know, she went on a spacewalk, and it was historic. It was the 221st spacewalk for space station assembly, and the first to be conducted entirely by women. Jessica Meir partnered with fellow astronaut Christina Cook to replace a battery-charged discharge unit. 2 years later, Jessica took on the role of astronaut support person for Crew-2, and there she is in jumpsuit number 38. She was responsible for helping the crew with anything they needed, including these documenting photos. She went all the way to the launch tower, in fact, as you see her there, as the astronauts went into their spacecraft. Meir has served as the assistant to the chief astronaut for the Commercial Crew program, but then also more recently, she rehearsed with the Artemis II crew, as you can see here, during an exercise at Kennedy simulating the crew's preparations on launch day for their mission to the moon. You had served at that time as the chief astronaut for the Human Landing System, the program that's facilitating the build of a lunar lander to return humans to the surface of the moon, and having a good time there with the commander of that mission.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about this job, Daryl, is that we are always doing different things, ranging from helping our buddies that are about to fly to the moon to conducting our own missions. And it's such an exciting time to be an astronaut right now. I mean, as you can see, we have multiple programs. We're continuing on with this International Space Station program, continuous presence up there now for 25 years, getting ready to launch our first astronauts to the moon next year. So it is a great time where we have the opportunity to ride on many different vehicles. There's a view of Anne McLean. She is in her SpaceX suit. You can see the chair she's in. That's identical to the seats that they have in the SpaceX Dragon capsule. And they are probably getting ready now to conduct their leak checks. So we do this in all vehicles that we fly in, where we buckle into our seats, we get all hooked up like we would in the vehicle, and we pressurize the suits to make sure that they have good pressure integrity. So you can see Takonishi there. Looks like his visor's already down. He's possibly already inflating, if not already up to full pressure there. So we're testing out all of these suits to make sure they have good integrity before we get in the vehicle.
And let's talk a little bit about, there you see, that's fully pressurized, what the astronauts did in the time between we first attempted this liftoff on Wednesday to today's attempt. And you can see there, I hear that this beach house here at the Kennedy Space Center was part of the plan.
Yeah, that is a beautiful view of the beach house. I've been fortunate enough to have been there a few times in my career as an astronaut, and it's really historic. It was actually built back in 1962, I think, acquired by NASA in 1963. At the time, there were other houses around, but those actually were relocated. I think you have some personal history with that, right?
Yes, Darren? Yes. One of them was relocated and came into possession by my aunt, who bequeathed it to our family. But yes, it was over on Ransom Road. It was sold by NASA to a family, or to a previous family member, or I should say somebody who sold it to a family member for $1,000.
Oh, what a deal.
And it cost $4,000 to move it. But look at that glorious shot right there. It is a spectacular location. My house was moved, but this one got to stay.
Yeah, that's right. And the astronauts now use this regularly when they have any downtime for their missions, and we've been using it since the 60s. So a lot of history there. There's a lot of astronaut memorabilia in the house. But the number one thing I think that is so amazing about it is just the tranquility that it provides. I mean, you can see there is nothing else around. You have the power of the Atlantic Ocean, this gorgeous beach, the sea oats in between. It is really just a great place for astronauts to relax and enjoy planet Earth before they leave it. And with their extra day yesterday, the crew actually got to use the beach house. They had some downtime there. I know Anne went for a run on the beach, which was the one thing that she really wanted to do.
Oh, nice.
All the crew members were there, like with their families and loved ones, and just enjoying that special downtime.
And the weather has simply been perfect the past few days. It's perfect for launch today, but as you can see from this shot, and props to our Kennedy Flight Operations team for getting it, it is gorgeous out there on the beach. The water is turquoise. The sun is out. We have a few more clouds today, but you know, that isn't going to cause too much of a problem. So let's talk launch weather since we're on the topic. And for launch today, it couldn't be any better. 95% go for liftoff. The only concern that we have is cumulus clouds, and that's with the introduction of some moisture that came into the area that we didn't have on Wednesday. A little bit of influence. We got some southeast flow, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem again by the fact that we are 95% go. Back into the suit-up room we are, as we see Anne completing her pressure check, and now she's up and on her feet. Before the astronauts got into the suit-up room, a number of things had to happen. They had to get their medical checks. They got a briefing from SpaceX and NASA before walking out here. But more importantly, they had to get breakfast, and I heard it was a delicious one.
It was. Anne reported that they had French toast this morning, among some other items. I think we may even have a picture of that.
We do
there
indeed.
it is. There it is. So I think they had a very, very delicious breakfast prior to getting out here today.
People are very curious about what the astronauts like to eat right before they get into a spacecraft. So thank you for getting us that crystal clear image.
Yeah, and last night they had another ultimate dinner. We talked about the one on Wednesday. This one was, last night's was butter lemon chicken with mashed potatoes and green beans. Anne said it was very delicious.
This is the food segment of our program, folks. We appreciate you listening in. I'm just fully hungry after listening to all that. And it's pie day. I mean, dessert.
Pie day,
I'm talking
absolutely.
about it all.
So this suit room where they are conducting their leak checks right now is actually pretty historic. I think you could have seen in the previous view there's a picture of an Apollo astronaut doing a pressure check or getting ready to do one as well. So that's one of the nice things about this quarantine facility. The suit room is located right in that same building. It's so historic and so inspiring for us as astronauts as we get ready to embark on our mission, especially when it's your first mission and you see the faces of all of these astronauts going back decades and then knowing the things that they accomplished, the barriers that they broke. It's really inspiring to be kind of part of that lineage. And I love that sort of tradition that we keep going. You know, it makes it so much more special when you can connect it to the decades of explorers that have come before you. You know, as we always say, completely true, we are riding on the shoulders of giants, and you can see that throughout this room, throughout the whole quarantine facility.
The T-minus 4-hour situation awareness briefing. We're currently counting down to a T0 of 23:03:48 UTC, 19:03:48 local time.
Okay, these suits are very different than the suits that the astronauts wear, right? So obviously these look like they're more modernized. I guess we can expect that from Tesla. Tesla likes to be a little different, kind of like Apple and Windows, or Apple and Android. So I guess you can call this Tesla's, the SpaceX, the Apple of their industry. So that'll be interesting to look into. With the time being, I kind of want to forward this up a little bit more.
Leak checks completed at ONC.
And
at the pad, opening the side hatch to prepare for
Down the hallway towards astronaut crew quarters in the suit-up room where the astronauts will turn the corner, walk that.
When I moved down to Houston to start my job as an NASA astronaut. Crew-10 is a group of pilots who are going to space together to execute science and maintenance. We are about to launch to the International Space Station for a 6-month rotation aboard the orbiting laboratory. Got a great group of humans who are funny and caring and kind and also wicked smart. And
well, I'm glad that she said humans, because there's a lot of people out there that don't think that a lot of humans are humans and they're like reptilians or something. So that's very reassuring that they're a group of humans she's working with. There's a joke there. I'm just playing. I don't believe they are reptilians. Then again, I do not know everything, so but it's funny because I don't think that she needed to say they're a great group of they're a great group of humans. Thanks for the clarification. Glad that
Kim or Dr. Morgan,
a group of humans working with you.
that would be comforting.
Something funny that I
Sure.
said. I don't know anybody else.
Great answer, Jessica. Thank you very much for that. As we look at Crew-10, now seated in their capsule. Up next for them, we'll be rotating those seats up. I should say articulating their seats upwards so they can get into a heads-up position. A fist bump from the closeout crew to the flight crew. as they make their way out of the capsule to begin evaluating the seal around the hatch. You know, we had a beautiful shot outside during the daytime as we look at the crew there huddled. We've been showing you the beautiful shots outside during the daytime, but there was a really cool shot last night during the blood moon. Check this out. Now this is time lapse, as you can see the shutter capturing the moon as it went by the Falcon 9 rocket and the Dragon spacecraft. So you can see in the middle there where it was a total eclipse, a total lunar eclipse. You know, this is where the sun, the moon, and the Earth are all aligned, and the moon gets into the darkest part of Earth's shadow, and it gets that reddish look. And look at that! Like, what a shot that was.
Yeah, that is absolutely gorgeous. And we haven't had a total lunar eclipse visible here since 2022.
How about that?
So really a beautiful view that we had here throughout the U.S. and other places of this blood moon.
Yes, it was very interesting. I liked that last night. That we had to see that. Interesting times.
Inside the capsule to outside of it, there at the press site. See the countdown clock, a historic site. It's on the National Historic.
2 hours.
The flagpole blowing and the nice breeze going. Weather conditions for liftoff today, they're fabulous. There's your forecast. We are 95% go. Winds are coming 7 to 12 miles per hour out of the south-southwest. Temperature is a mild and comfy 70 degrees. The only concern for that 5% resides in the cumulus cloud rule, and that's because we have a little more moisture in the air than we did 2 days ago. But really, as you can see outside, not a lot of cumulus clouds. You've got those high stratus clouds, but there you see some off in the distance over top of the ocean, but those seem to be pretty thin. Not expecting a lot of moisture in those, so that all bodes well. There's a beautiful shot. The sky is open and clear for this liftoff right now. It's green, of course. We'll be looking again at the weather, as in fact even more closely as we get closer to launch.
Yes, beautiful skies. Not a, if you notice, there's not
full in the background.
There is not a condensation trail in sight, except for right here. Oh, that's the logo. Again, just joking, everybody. Have a good night. Have a good day. I don't want to upset anybody here. I don't care if they're chemtrails. I don't care if they are contrails. I don't care. I don't control everything. But little funny joke, because we see a lot of those lines in the skies, and that's a big controversial topic that I'm sure many people would love to discuss, and we will discuss that, I'm sure, someday, sometime. But in the time being, we are covering the SpaceX launch or relaunch, and we are getting down to the countdown. So let's hurry up on. Let's hurry this on.
The spacecraft, ground systems, all good as we watch the closeout crew continue to do their work before leaving the launch complex. And just to wrap up on Ann, she's a former rugby player, and a pretty good one from what I hear.
Oh, look, here's a little bit of the, well, they had a introduction of each of the
members' home country.
What is that, a dragon?
And the brightest stars represent the crew's closest family members and support system. It's a lovely patch.
SpaceX,
we always have to be ready for. We always have to be flexible. You know that there's a plan for your mission. That plan can always change. As you've seen in recent years, there are so many different things that can happen, not just with vehicles, but all different aspects of the space station program. And so, you know, we accept the mission, knowing what the plan is, but knowing full well that there's a very good chance that it can change. And that's just something that, you know, a lot of us are used to from our previous careers as well, that flexibility and adaptability. And I think it's one of our most important skills as an astronaut. And that's what Sonny and Butch have been doing.
You're absolutely right. They went up on a test flight that was supposed to last 8 days, but they were ready to become part of the team up at the International Space Station, working, maintaining. They did spacewalks. They have done They have done it all.
Yeah, they're both very experienced astronauts. They've done International Space Station missions before, so it's not something foreign to them, and they were incredibly productive during their time.
All right, quick social question. We want to get another one up.
Well, here shortly. We should also see propellant load getting underway in just a few minutes as well. Again, our teams are staffed around the clock in mission control here in Hawthorne, mission control in Houston, as well as the launch control
They're locked
center
and loaded.
to monitor Dragon throughout its entire mission from liftoff all the way to Crew-10's arrival at the space station and then on its return home to Earth. And there you're seeing some great shots of the crew access arm pulling away from Dragon. Clear skies as far as the eye can see. Perfect weather for today's launch.
Getting exciting over here.
All right, isn't that exciting? Hold up. I know we don't see some condensation trails right there. Someone's going to get fired. There should be no planes.
The weather looks amazing.
Flying
over there
around
at
here.
Pad 39A. You can see that crew access arm
Okay, that side,
still
no.
moving. It'll move all the way to that 90 degrees away from the vehicle.
Crew access arm retraction complete.
And there we just heard confirmation that the crew access arm has been fully retracted. That process is now complete. Again, the next step in our process leading up to today's launch at 7:03 p.m. Eastern, 4:03 p.m. Pacific will be the propellant loading, and that should be getting underway here shortly.
All right.
In the meantime, let's go ahead and check back in with Daryl at NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Hold up, Daryl. I kind of like this. What we have here? We have SpaceX all black uniform with, what is that she is wearing? I find that very interesting. I don't know why. I just do. I want to see closer. What is she wearing? Do you guys know what that is? A necklace. All black hair, black eyebrows. And then you got the blonde, blue eyes. Red, white, and blue. And much different. See? She is representing NASA. I'm not sure that it makes a difference. It's just very interesting how these, it's like, imagine if Apple and Windows got together to do a major project, right? And considering this is something they should have been doing a long time ago, not just when Trump's in office, it kind of makes everybody look incompetent, right? In the last administration, which was the whole controversy of what was going on with this whole thing. So let's see if we can let's play a little bit more of this. Daryl, right?
All right, thank you very much, ladies. Back here with NASA astronaut Jessica Meir as we orbit the launch pad, Launch Complex 39A here at the Kennedy Space Center, going in circles on Pi Day. Seems fitting, Jessica.
Absolutely, it does. This is the day for it.
We've got a few milestones coming up here in the next few minutes. We're going to close our visors at T-minus 39 minutes and then start the process of...
All right, Daryl's boring. Let's see
first
who this
space flight
is.
today.
This is really the ultimate of Kirill's very curious and adventurous nature. I hear he loves to discover all aspects of and areas of Russia and the U.S. now in his SUV, and he is always exploring, so this will be the ultimate of his exploration today for him and for all of his crew.
And all four of these crew members are pilots. They speak that common language of aviation. That must be comforting to all of them.
I think so, and I think it has brought them closer together as a crew. They can almost read each other's minds, they say. Sometimes, you know, they don't even need words, and they have this shared sentiment, this shared language. It makes them a very synchronous, cohesive crew.
And for the past year and a half, that crew has been training diligently to be ready to help conduct science investigations aboard station. The crew will perform biomedical research and technology demonstrations over the 4-month expedition. Commander Anne McLean is participating in the Canadian Space Agency space experiment involving heart health.
This headband is actually connected to sensors throughout my body, and they are collecting real-time data on my heart rate, oxygen saturation, and my respiratory rate. Imagine the day where you go see your doctor because you're concerned about your heart health, and they give you these sensors to wear.
Okay, or maybe we go see a nutritionist and see why I was a doctor. I wonder why.
Christine and I recently spent several days in Iceland, trading in our spacesuits for hiking gear to study its geology and surroundings. Why Iceland? Well, as you can see, it has a similar landscape and terrain to the moon, with various volcanic rocks like basalts and breccia.
Okay, that's interesting, but not while we're here.
International Space Station today. Falcon 9 is a 2-stage rocket developed and manufactured by SpaceX, known for its safe, reliable, and cost-effective access to space. It's also the first orbital-class rocket capable of reflight. And sitting at the top of Falcon 9, Dragon and its trunk stand over 26 feet tall. There are 2 windows on the spacecraft, plus one underneath the nose cone. The nose cone opens shortly after launch to expose the forward bulkhead thrusters and docking mechanism that will connect with the space station. Dragon's trunk holds solar cells, which power Dragon while it's in free flight, and the trunk can also carry unpressurized cargo. Now, Dragon has played a significant role in advancing our future in space by safely transporting crew to and from the space station. There are currently 4 Dragon spacecraft supporting human spaceflight missions that have docked to the station. There you can see them on your screen. That is Endeavour, Resilience, Endurance, and Freedom. Now, designed to be the safest spacecraft ever flown, Dragon is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers to and from Earth orbit and beyond.
And Dragon has 16 Draco thrusters that can be used in space to help navigate the spacecraft to its destination, each providing 90 pounds of force. That doesn't include the 8 Super Draco thrusters used for an abort, which are no longer active once the crew is in orbit. Dragon has flown 49 times, with 15 human spaceflight missions since 2020, when Dragon became the first private spacecraft to take humans to the International Space Station. In that time, Dragon has flown over 1,000 experiments to space and 56 crew members representing 14 different countries.
Dragon has proven to be a versatile spacecraft. It can autonomously dock to the space station when outfitted with the International Space Station docking adapter, as it is for today's flight. When it's not going to the space station and in free flyer mode, the docking adapter can be swapped out for a cupola. Another option that we have is the Skywalker hardware, which supports extravehicular activities as the crew used during the Polaris Dawn mission. Now, continuing down the vehicle, we do have the second stage. The second stage is powered by a single Merlin vacuum engine, or MVAC engine, which is optimized to perform in the vacuum of space. After stage separation, the MVAC will ignite and carry Dragon to its target orbit. Now, the Falcon 9's first and second stages are connected by the black inner stage, which houses the MVAC engine and the system that decouples the 2 stages during stage separation. And below that is the first stage.
Stage 2 LOX load has started.
Good call out. Stage 2 LOX loading has begun. Below that is the first stage, which is powered by 9 Merlin engines. These 9 Merlin engines provide the initial thrust to lift.
Dragon SpaceX reporting that we continue to track no issues with Dragon or Falcon proceeding to launch.
Here we go. Proceeding to launch.
SpaceX Dragon, copy.
Great news, just calling out that we're tracking no issues. These 9 Merlin engines provide the initial thrust to lift Falcon 9 off of the ground through the lower, thicker parts of the Earth's atmosphere. Now, each of these Merlin 1D engines delivers about 190,000 pounds of thrust at sea level, which gives Falcon 9 a combined 1.7 million pounds of thrust.
And after stage separation, stage 1 will return to Earth for recovery and reuse on a future mission using a combination of the Merlin sea level engines and the 4 titanium grid fins located near the top of the booster, which will guide it during its re-entry and landing.
Good. I want everybody to remember that because we're going to have a pop quiz on Friday.
will mark different abort zones throughout the flight up the eastern seaboard. The first two are 1 Alpha and 1 Bravo, which are abort modes available while the first stage is firing. And then the next round of numbers and letters you'll hear are 2 Alpha through 2 Echo, though you'll only hear the 2 Alpha call on the public loops, and those will come into play once the second stage kicks in. And then diverting a little bit from the other naming system, you will hear the call out Shannon, which refers to Shannon, Ireland, and this call means the crew could target off the coast of Ireland if they needed to abort late in the second stage burn. And you'll continue to hear those different callouts along with key performance callouts from the guidance, navigation, and control officer along with the propulsion lead. We're now just under 7 minutes away from launch.
Engines are chilling in for flight.
And we just heard that confirmation that the stage 1 engine chill has started.
Yeah, exactly. That call out is because we are flowing a little bit of liquid oxygen into the engines. That's to help prepare the vehicle or the engines for the full flow of liquid oxygen into the engines. That makes sure that we don't shock the system at that full flow. Now we are still loading. At liftoff, Falcon 9 is consuming about 700 gallons of fuel per second. So engine chill helps us prevent that thermal shock into the engine. So again, we have passed that T-minus 7 minute mark. Next call out will be stage 1.
700 gallons
RP1 loading
a
complete,
minute?
which we just heard that.
And
did I hear that right?
RP1 is densified kerosene or rocket fuel that will propel the crew into orbit. All of that RP1 is now fully loaded into the rocket, and since we previously heard that second stage loading was completed.
All right.
We are still loading the liquid oxygen or LOX onto the first and second stages, and this is the oxidizer needed to combine with the densified kerosene that just finished loading. The RP1 liquid propellant needs an oxidizer to combine with in order to ignite. Coming up in just under 30 seconds at that T-minus 5 minute mark, we will hear the call for Dragon to configure for terminal count and then transition over to internal power.
Tanks are pressing for strong back retract. Dragon is in configure for terminal count.
And there we just heard that call out for terminal count, so now Dragon onboard computers will take control of the spacecraft. And we also heard that the propellant tanks on Falcon 9 are getting ready to pressurize, adding some additional structural support to the rocket as we get ready for that strong back to retract. And that strong back provides access to Falcon 9's fueling lines.
Has started.
That strong back lower has now started, and again, that strong back provides access to Falcon 9's fueling lines and umbilicals for both propellant load and the different gases being loaded on board.
And what you should see on your screen is there's those clamp arms that are around the second stage just below Dragon. They're going to open up, and once they're fully open, then that strong back or the TE can begin to recline away from the vehicle. Now, initially, we are going to recline that TE just about 2 degrees away from the vehicle, and then we will fully move the TE about 45 degrees away up at T0. And they're maybe a little hard to see on your screen, but the clamp arms are opening up there. There's a better view. Looks like the clamp arms are now fully open, so that TE will begin to move away from the vehicle. Very slow and slight, but just enough to get two degrees away from the vehicle.
And then coming up in less than 30 seconds at the T-minus 3 minute mark, the first stage liquid oxygen or LOX load will complete. And we'll continue to check through a couple more fueling milestones, including one around the T-minus 2 minute mark before flight, where we'll hear liquid oxygen loading is complete on the second stage. And now you see all of those white clouds on your screen. Those are clouds of vapor, and they're completely normal, and we'll see them continue to build up as we get closer to launch. This is because liquid oxygen is super chilled, so a little of it will boil off in the warmer Florida air.
Stage 1, LOX load complete.
Great call out there. Stage 1.
Count and on.
Putting liquid oxygen onto
I'm
stage
going
2.
to cut off
That'll
a little
wrap
bit
up
there.
here at the T-minus 2 minute mark, just about 20 seconds from now. And once we finish propellant loading, that will mean that 1 million pounds of RP1 and liquid oxygen will be loaded onto Falcon 9 here, just under 10 seconds.
Stage 2, LOX load complete.
We just heard confirmation that the stage 2 liquid oxygen loading is now complete. We are under 2 minutes away from launch. Gas closeout has also begun. So we're now isolating all of the feed lines for the different gas systems from the Falcon 9 rocket. And those gases will then get vented overboard through umbilicals and the strong back. And you just heard that call out that Dragon is an
Ground gas
aisle.
closeouts, expect loud venting.
Well, you can hear that venting now. Obviously, rockets are very loud, and the sound can impart pressure loads back on the rocket itself. The ton of water absorbs and prevents the sound from hitting the structure and reverberating back onto the rocket. And that call out for auto idle puts the rocket in a state the flight computers understand before it takes over, making sure the transition to final countdown is smooth and all the flight computers on board are in sync and configured for launch.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And now we just heard that Falcon 9 is in startup.
Is in countdown.
And in the final countdown, less than a minute to go, and at the time of launch, the space station will be flying 260 statute miles over the west coast of Australia.
Dragon, SpaceX. Go for launch.
And great call out.
SpaceX Dragon Crew-10, copy, go for launch.
Great call out that we're go for launch, and we do have a large crowd here in front of Mission Control.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Waiting to watch Crew-10 take off today.
T-minus 15. T-minus 10. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff. Go SpaceX, go NASA Crew-10.
Copy 1 Alpha.
And liftoff of Crew-10 now
Vehicles pitching down range.
Space Station. 1.7 million pounds of thrust now propelling Falcon 9 and Crew-10. And we're continuing to get good call-outs on the first stage performance so far. We're now 40 seconds into today's flight.
Power and telemetry nominal.
Continuing to get good performance call-outs.
Throttle down.
Yeah, we are throttling down the engines in preparation for Max Q. What great timing that was. We just passed through Max Q. That's the largest structural load that the vehicle will see on ascent.
Vehicle supersonic.
Stage 1 throttle up.
We're now just over 1 minute and 10 seconds into today's flight, traveling at more than 1,400 miles per hour.
Stage 1 Bravo.
And we just heard that
SpaceX
call out
copies,
for
1 Bravo.
1 Bravo, which means we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage, continuing to get good performance. And the crew already pulling over 2 Gs. Next up, we'll have a couple of events happening in rapid succession.
Effect chill started.
First will be that engine chill on the second stage embark engine, which we just heard. And then we'll have MECO, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines on the first stage will cut off ahead of the first and second stages, will be separating from one another. Then the single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to carry Crew-10 to orbit while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth. Now we're just 2 minutes into today's flight. The vehicle is traveling just under 4,000 miles per hour.
We're just about 20 seconds away from those events that Anna just mentioned. The 9 Merlin engines will shut down here in just about 10 seconds for MECO. stage separation, and SES-1.
Main engine cutoff.
SpaceX Dragon, 2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed. Copy, 2 Alpha.
Great call-outs and incredible views there on your left-hand screen. On your left-hand screen, you can see a view from stage 1.
All right, that was amazing. I am no rocket scientist,
Awesome views of that boost back
but
on the first stage,
it's always fun.
as well as the embark engine igniting on the second stage. Great views there. Now the booster is in its boost back burn. This is the first of 3 burns as it makes its way back down to Earth. This will last about 45 seconds. And the Crew-10 crew is still on board Dragon, attached to Falcon 9's second stage, which you can see there on your right-hand screen.
And we're now at 3 minutes and 20 seconds into today's flight. The vehicle is traveling about 6,500 miles per hour. And they are on their way to the space station. And we did have that confirmation coming up of the boost back shutdown, and then coming up at the T+6 minute mark. And there we have our first images of the crew inside the Dragon spacecraft as they make their way into orbit. And the crew
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
continuing to get good call outs.
SpaceX Dragon, copy nominal.
Stage 2 continues to be on power with in its firing until we get to that second stage engine cutoff around the 9-minute mark of flight. About 5 minutes of flight to go before Dragon will be flying free.
Some cool views there on your left-hand screen. That's the first stage booster as it's making its way back down to Earth. This is a ground tracking camera getting these awesome views.
And on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see that lone Merlin vacuum engine of the second stage. We're continuing to get good performance on the second stage. And the crew's G-loads will dip right when we hit the separation events, and it's going to continue to build up until then.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
SpaceX Dragon, copy nominal.
We're now at 5 minutes into today's flight with a liftoff at 7:03 p.m. Pacific, 7:03 p.m. Eastern, 4:03 p.m. Pacific. Continuing to get good call-outs as Stage 1 makes its way back to Earth, and Stage 2 continues to fire, propelling Dragon into orbit.
If you're just now joining us, the 4 members of Crew-10 launched from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. And they're currently on board Dragon, still attached to Falcon 9's second stage, which you're seeing there on your right-hand screen. On your left-hand screen, the first stage vehicle is making its way back down to Earth. It already completed the first of 3 burns as the boost back burn, and the next event coming up for that vehicle is going to be the entry burn.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Great call-outs there. That entry burn is coming up.
SpaceX Dragon, copy nominal.
That entry burn is coming up here in just under 20 seconds. We'll reignite 3 of those 9 Merlin 1D engines to help slow the vehicle down as it makes its way back into the Earth's atmosphere.
We're now just over 6 minutes into today's flight as Dragon and the second stage continue traveling at over 12,000 miles per hour, making their way into orbit and on the way to the International Space Station.
There we just saw on the screen, it was very quick, but we had the entry burn, which we got some cool views of that from the ground, which is awesome. Now the next event coming up will be the landing burn for the first stage. That's coming up here in about 30 seconds.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Again, great call outs for
SpaceX Dragon, copy nominal.
Confirmation there from the crew as they continue to make their way into orbit. Now 7 minutes into today's flight, the first stage making its way back down to Earth and the second stage continuing to fire.
This is an awesome view. Let's see if we can see the center engine relight for that landing burn here in a few seconds. There's that landing burn. Let's watch as Falcon 9 touches down on landing zone 1. And the crowd here is excited to see Falcon 9 touch down on landing zone 1.
And now that the first stage has made its way back to Earth, we're about a minute away from the second engine cutoff, which we're expecting around the 9-minute mark of today's flight. We're continuing to get good call-outs, and Dragon and all of the systems on the vehicle are performing as expected. Just over 8 minutes into today's flight, traveling more than 21,000 miles per hour.
Terminal guidance.
Hearing good call-outs. We're about 30 seconds away from that second engine cutoff, and then shortly after that, about a minute or so later, we will have orbital insertion.
SpaceX Dragon, Shannon.
SpaceX copy, Shannon.
And that call out there for Shannon, and that is the call out for Shannon, Ireland, which is the final abort stage for the second stage off the coast of Ireland. Standing by for a second engine cutoff.
Embark shutdown.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
And there we heard confirmation
Launch
of
escape system disarmed.
good confirmation of orbital insertion. Crew-10 is now well on their way to the International Space Station following a 9.5-minute flight uphill.
Now, the second stage is preparing for Dragon separation here, which should happen shortly. In about 10-15 seconds is what we're expecting. And we're preparing for stabilizing the second stage so that we can have a smooth separation.
And there you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, the crowd is going wild. There on your screen you can see that Dragon separation, that second stage making its way, and Dragon is now flying free. 10 minutes into today's flight, that was about a minute after we had that second engine cutoff and orbital insertion. And it looks like a good separation, good rates. Dragon now flying free. There on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see some first images of Crew-10 inside the Dragon Endurance spacecraft as they're now successfully in orbit.
Dragon, SpaceX Chief Engineer on Countdown 1. On behalf of the entire Falcon team, we thank you for flying with Falcon and wish you a great mission. Over to LD.
It was an honor flying with you this evening. We wish you well on your journey and give Crew 9 our best. Thank you for flying SpaceX.
SpaceX Dragon, this is Crew-10 Commander Ann McClain. Thank you to all of the teams from across the world who contributed to the launch today. Spaceflight is tough, but humans are tougher. Days like today are made possible only when people choose to do the harder right over the easier wrong. Build relationships, choose cooperation, and believe in the inherent goodness of all people across the world. To my family and friends, without you, I would not be here. Explore boldly, live gracefully, go Crew-10. And over to pilot Nicole Ayers.
Pilot Nicole Ayers again. We're not the first humans to get to orbit, and we wouldn't be here without the bravery and hard work of those who have paved the way for human spaceflight. We now get the unique perspective of Earth without borders and get to revel in the connectedness of humanity. I would be remiss to not once again acknowledge those who helped me get here to this wonderful view and this perspective. to the teachers, coaches, fellow officers, fellow teammates, Raptor Nation, to my friends and family that encouraged my dreams from the start, thank you. I wouldn't be here without you.
And there you have it. Some.
This is Mission Specialist Takuya Onishi. I want to say a huge thank you to NASA and SpaceX, especially the Falcon 9 team for the successful launch, and we are looking forward to a smooth ride to the International Space Station. 日本の皆さん、たくさんの応援ありがとうございます。9年ぶりの無重力の感覚をかみしめてます。これから先の ISS への宇宙の旅、楽しんでいきたいと思います。I will now hand the mic over to Mission Specialist Kirill.
Thanks a lot to NASA and SpaceX for this wonderful ride, and I want to say a couple of words in Russian. Пользуясь такой чудесной возможностью, хочу поздравить с 65-летием со дня начала подготовки первого отряда. И также хочу сказать спасибо большое за те знания и жизненный опыт, который мной были получены в всех стенах для того, чтобы выполнить этот полет. А также спасибо школе номер 14 города Назарова, Ульяновскому высшему авиационному училищу гражданской авиации и авиакомпании МКАР и Нордвин, где я начинал свой путь в небо. И, конечно же, спасибо большое семье и за поддержку.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal nose cone opening and forward bulkhead Draco checkouts.
SpaceX Dragon copies and confirm nominal E-course activation and go for visors.
And there we heard confirmation that the nose cone has fully deployed and that the crew is now able to lift their visors. And there again, we're seeing some views inside the Dragon Endurance spacecraft with Crew-10 on their way to the International Space Station.
Affirm, you are go to open visors.
Copy.
Great calls there. They're go to open visors, which means that shortly they'll also be able to get out of their suits and get comfortable for the entire ride on Dragon to the International Space Station.
And from left to right on your screen, there's Roscosmos cosmonaut Kirill Peskov, NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers, NASA astronaut Ian McLean, and then far on the right-hand side of your screen is JAXA astronaut Takuya Onishi.
And there you could see that they are in microgravity as their tablets are floating around there. They do have them attached to a little string that helps allow them so that, you know, as they're strapped into their seats, they don't lose their tablets.
We're now just over 20 minutes into today's flight following that successful liftoff at 7:03 p.m. Eastern, 4:03 p.m. Pacific. There you're getting an over-the-shoulder view between the commander and pilot, so Ian McLean and Nicole Ayers.
If you're just now joining us, you are watching live Crew-10 out in space in the Dragon vehicle. They lifted off from Space Launch Complex 39A at 7:03 p.m. Eastern Time.
Dragon SpaceX, there are about 3 minutes remaining in the current ground station pass. At this time, you're welcome to introduce your zero-G indicator. We're using the full crew cam so we can see all 4 crew members right now.
All right, copies. Thank you, SpaceX. We'd like to introduce the Crew-10 G indicator. Takuya is holding him up. This is a hand crochet origami crane. The Japanese origami, hand crocheted in the United States, and his name is Drug, which is the Russian name for friend.
Orbit following an approximately 9 minutes.
Recounted my stories here tonight. Those words were all so inspirational as well. I love how they unveiled their Drug, their origami crane. It really hit on so many important themes tonight, you know, talking about this Japanese art of folding paper really combining all of the cultures of their crew, the name being a Russian name meaning friend, the origami crane for Japanese culture, all of the flags on the crane handmade by a small business in the U.S. It really highlights so many important elements that I know are so important to the crew and to all of us at NASA and all of the space agencies. Ideally, you know, really in summary, highlighting the representation of peace, of hope, and of healing, and that we are all truly stronger when we work together. So thank you, Anne. Thank you, Crew-10, for those incredible words. I think that there's a lesson there for all of us tonight. We are exploring for the benefit of all.
And Crew-10 believes in all dreamers. Thank you for highlighting the words of Commander Anne McLean as well. Crew-10 will become part of Expedition 73, briefly with 72, but then 73 when they arrive on the space station. NASA's Megan Cruz joins us now with Megan Everett, Deputy Chief Scientist of the International Space Station.
That's right, two Megans here, and I want to talk to you about, we obviously have another crew en route to the space station. How is the research that's done on the ISS different from other research at NASA?
Yes, well, first, thank you for having me. It's always my pleasure and very grateful to get to talk about science in space. And so, like you said, the space station is a national laboratory, and it allows us to look at things in microgravity for extended periods of time. We can put things on the outside of the space station where they experience extreme temperature changes and exposure to radiation in that extreme environment. And we also get these very unique perspectives of the Earth's surface. And so together, these things allow us to look at things like theories in quantum physics and answer questions that we can't answer with laboratories on Earth. We can look at human health and how that we can get astronauts to explore beyond low Earth orbit, as well as promote human health and answer questions related to diseases that we can't do on Earth. And it also allows us to expand commercialization in low Earth orbit by some of our in-space manufacturing. And in addition to this, it's just this really cool collaboration of international partners and scientific cooperation that we see on the space station.
Yeah, obviously a unique platform, and we do all that we can to really utilize it. So how does what we learn on the space station help us here on Earth? Can you give us some examples about that?
Yes, I love that question because one of NASA's big mission objectives is to figure out how we can do science in space to promote human health here on Earth. And one of the things we've been really successful with on ISS is looking at stem cell research and organelles and how those relate to specific diseases like cancer. And we also look at protein crystallization, and so we can grow very uniform crystals in space better than we can on Earth. And these crystals are really important in pharmaceutical drug development. So together we can look at disease progression and how we can better treat those diseases with new pharmaceuticals in space.
That's great. You did also mention human health and researching, what it could mean if we go farther and farther into the universe. How are we doing on that research? What are we learning?
So we've used ISS as a test bed for exploration beyond low Earth orbit for a long time, and we continue to use that, and we will all the way through end of station. And some of the specific things that we look at are how the human responds to long duration exposure to gravity. So we look at exercise countermeasures, at how we can maintain muscle and bone strength. We look at things like food systems for how we keep crew healthy for long periods of time. We have a very robust plant growth program, so we try to optimize crop output by changing things like soil and water exposure to those plants. And we need life support systems for our